What did a former friend do that instantly changed your opinion of them? Was close friends throughout high school. Even got one of his drawings as a tattoo. Lost touch after HS. Found him and emailed him about 15 years later. His reply, "Hi DD, glad things are going well. Let me tell you about this great product I'm lucky enough to be able to offer people like you." It went on and on, a pyramid scheme. I never wrote back. Sucks. I missed him. I'm meeting a friend tomorrow that might do just that lol. Haven't really talked in years and then out of nowhere he's been asking to hang out and coming over tomorrow to just visit. I'm hoping he just wants to visit, but we were never that close in high school, as in only talked at school and never hung out outside of it. He also mentioned something about going in on a business. I'm giving him a chance since we are on good terms, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. Hey babe, heard your mom died last week, really sucks lol. Anyway, I was wondering if you'd be interested in my new mega tentacle dildo? To help fill the aching hole left by losing a loved one. The tentacles are extra floppy and if you purchase 10 sets you receive a free body pillow. Was at an 18th birthday party. My boyfriend at the time left early because he had to work the next day, but my friend told me he had lied to me and gone home with another girl. I was quite drunk and impressionable as a result and got quite upset. Then she suggested I should hook up with one of her older male friends as revenge. I eventually got a lift back to his place and found out it wasn't true. His mom had picked him up from the party and he was asleep in his own bed. Turns out she also liked my boyfriend and was trying to break us up so she could take a shot at him. Had a friend do something similar in high school. Her parents were going through a nasty divorce and I offered to let her stay at my house whenever she needed it. I called my then boyfriend as I was closing up at my fast food job that I'd be home in 20 or so minutes if he wanted to swing by my house. I said Amanda would be there to let him in. I barely get out of my car when he comes storming out the front door saying she took off all her clothes, talked shit about me and tried to get him to sleep with her. I walk in, she's on my couch in her underwear, arms crossed. I told her to get her shit and get out. What the foo is wrong with people? We were co-workers at the time, and I put a lot of trust in her. I was new and constantly getting shit from higher-ups over things I was supposed to know without having ever been told. She was my team lead, and told me I could lean on her and ask for help anytime. Everyone on the team called her Mama Bear. I vented and confided about work to her a lot, and she listened and gave me advice. The shit from the higher-ups only got worse. I talked to her more and more. Work started really getting me down about myself, and stressed me out because I knew I was losing my job soon, and I had no idea why I was getting crap when I'd bent over backwards and worked long, unpaid, hours to pick up my apparent slack. It took one of my other co-workers pulling me into her office, closing the door, and telling me to my face, "You're trusting the wrong people here. Stop telling anyone anything." And then she told me all the crap that the gossip mill had going about me. Things that I had only told Mama Bear. It turned out the bitches of the group were the only ones not going around making up drama and bullshit, and had been trying to get me to open my eyes for months. I was so floored and betrayed. I started crying on the spot, but other co-worker told me to dry that up and don't let them know they got to you. Hold your chin up and pretend everything is great until you can get out of here. I did just that, pretended I never found out. Just WHO was telling upper management that I wasn't cut out, wasn't putting in the work, wasn't getting along with the rest of the team, which had been true a year earlier, but then we all got along great, and anytime Mama Bear came to me asking if I wanted to talk, I told her nope. I'm good, but thanks. Smile. Last time I saw her I was still smiling to her face, telling her I was sad to not be working with her anymore, and I'd miss her. Bitch. Hope she chokes on her second face. This reminds me of how and why I left my last job. I loved the work, loved my boss, loved our team. Then suddenly a few months in, one of our teammates was doing horribly. According to the boss, she was slacking, wasn't doing what she was hired to do, just sucked at her job. She stuck it out for 3 more months and tried to do better before leaving in a whirlwind of drama. Things went okay for a couple months. We found a replacement to hire for the team, had someone the boss knew come to help out temporarily before she went back to college. I was given the title the other girl had and moved to an office closer to the boss. Then, I dropped the ball on a major project. I was given something that had literal federal ramifications if done incorrectly, without being given instructions or help at all for how to do it. Boss was sick, and I caught it, but didn't go to the doctor and take any time off till I thought it was done. While I was out sick, the boss discovered that I hadn't finished it, because I didn't know what was required to finish it, because she assigned it to me without telling me much of anything about it. From the day I came back until I quit 3 weeks later, I was told that I was no longer here mentally, not the same old foolish pheasant, not dedicated to this business. I didn't give it 3 months like the former co-worker, I gave it 3 weeks. I got fussed at or written up 3 weeks in a row, so I wrote the GM an email detailing what happened and didn't return. Turned out it wasn't the co-worker who was slacking, it was that the boss needed somebody to blame for her poor time management. It was my fault she had to work 7 days a week. I noped out, damned well I'll try to learn from you and never let that happen. I have a tendency to be too open, and while it's usually good for making friends, probably not a good idea in the workplace even if they seem super friendly and ask questions like that. Yeah, foo that person though. An old friend once showed up at my house the night he found out the girl I was sort of dating was also hooking up with my other friend. He brought a bottle of whiskey and told it to me straight even though the other guy was his best friend. We weren't actually that close before that, but it was a solid thing to do and our mutual friend was fully aware what he was doing. Had an old friend that got into drugs. I shipped out to the military, and hadn't heard from him in a few years. Apparently he was sent to rehab down in California. I was at the gym in Kansas one day working out, and I received a message from him that he needed $100, because he lost his wallet and phone. So being a good guy, and he'd never asked me for money before, I wire transferred him some, to help him out. Turns out I actually helped him escape rehab, and the whole thing was a lie. He's doing better now I hear, but it didn't sit well with me, and made me feel guilty for helping him escape, and disappoint his family. I've pretty much cut all ties of communication with him. Drugs change people, it's crazy. Ditched me at a bar after someone punched me. He thought I was going to call the police on the venue, so he insisted he take my phone. It took me 2 weeks to get my phone back, and his dad was the one who gave it to me, which I only was able to do because I called my own phone myself, since the friend in question ghosted me. Needless to say, foo that guy. Borrowed a vehicle for a week, returned it full of trash with both door handles broken, and stinking of smoke. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't have time to clean up the mess, and his kid broke the handles, not him. We didn't talk much after that. My dog's health drastically plummeted in one day. I went to bed and he was great. I woke and he was dying from kidney failure. Took him to the vet and he was put down in my arms while I held it together until just after he passed and broke into a waterfall of emotion. Got home with him and grabbed a shovel. Made it to the garden and started digging. A car pulls in. My friend gets out with a shovel. Walks up and doesn't say anything. Just starts digging with me. A few minutes later another car pulls in. Another friend gets out with a shovel. I realized right then and there that I had made some incredibly amazing friends, after overhearing, via eavesdropping, my new, slightly higher salary. He decided that meant I should loan him money since I was rich from a job I wouldn't start for a month. When I refused to do this, he texted me while I was having dinner with my new co-workers that he'd always secretly hated me and knew I hated him. And a bunch of other manipulative BS. I did not hate him prior to this. Suffice to say I cut him out of my life and show that text to any unfortunate mutual friends that believe his sob story about how I'm an asshole. They usually cut contact with him after reading it. Lol. This guy presented himself as the perfect boy next door. He was cute, had good grades, went to a private Christian school, and he had the perfect poster family. He was impossible not to like on the outside. And then, on the other hand, I had this other friend who had pretty bad OCD and was just all around socially awkward. She was really sweet at heart, but you really had to think through everything you said to her to make sure she didn't take it the wrong way. I had a class with both of these friends. The girl had a crush on someone else in the class who sat nearby and made it pretty obvious. She left the room one day and suddenly my do-no-wrong friend started expressing his sympathy for the guy she had a crush on. He was saying shit like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that, and I'll pray for you at my church." The second I tried to defend the girl, I'm turned into some sort of social outcast. You did good, though. You risked your social status to defend someone who's a good person, and that's a good trait to have, even if it doesn't always benefit you. Friend A was out of work. I had another friend, friend B, willing to give friend A a job instantly. No application or interview required. Passed along the contact info to friend A to talk to friend B. Crickets. Guy had no money for rent and basically stiffed his roommate who he was renting from for months. Said he would claim squatters' rights if he had to. Still always had weed though. Really showed me how lazy and selfish he really was. Stopped hanging out with that group as a whole shortly thereafter. I had a roommate like this out of college. Dude was long-term unemployed, but his parents gave him money for rent and bills. Instead he was always late on rent and trying to make excuses. The fact that he always had alcohol and weed told us where that rent money was going. I remember when the landlord, an extremely patient man, finally put his foot down and this guy cried to his parents about needing more money. Me and the other guys in the house moved out when the lease was up, and of course he tried to make us the bad guys for not signing a new lease. I was very glad to know I'd never see him again. I recently had to cut my best friend of 10 years out of my life when 4 different women came forward with similar stories of sexual assault. I knew this friend of mine had substance abuse problems, and I knew that sometimes he was a shitty person to be around, especially when he was 2 or 3 days into a bender, but I loved him and granted him a lot of patience and was very forgiving of his actions. That all came to an end when the assault allegations came to light. Seeing how these women were affected and still carrying these traumatic events with them was enough to tell my now ex-best friend to kick rocks. I've warned just about everyone in our friend circle about what was done as well. It's hard, I have dreams about him still, but I can't morally be friends with someone who would take advantage of the females in our group. That was really strong of you to do. Well done. I recently managed to leave a flat in which a guy also lived with his girlfriend and his best mate. His mate has an awful substance abuse problem, and eventually assaulted the guy's girlfriend in the house. He was head tenant and did absolutely nothing about it, then got extremely abusive and angry when I left a week later. They're all still living there together, as far as I know. She is horrifically depressed, and he is awfully manipulative. Still trying to deal with it all. The last day before I moved, my 2 neighbors who I grew up with were hanging out with me. One of them was pestering the other to leave to make their party, which I initially took no offense to. Then my other friend said, "No, this is her last day. I'm going to stay here." That meant the world to me. I'm a girl and my friends are guys, so I will admit I have lower expectations for this sort of thing. I realized that friend who stayed was a friend on a different level than the other. I had 2 best friends that hated each other. C was fine with me hanging out with L, but L hated when I hung out with C. I made sure their paths never crossed to keep the peace. One random night L gave me an ultimatum: L or C. So I chose C because who the foo do you think you are? 25 years later and I'm still really good friends with C. Don't give me ultimatums. My friend was stationed in Kuwait for many years doing work for the army. He joined the army to gain discipline and to obtain benefits for the GI Bill, as well as gain a relevant skill set. Before that, he married a nice girl who was very sweet and seemed caring and had many interests he did, who happened to be the sister of one of his friends. He returned from duty and did contracting work on oil fields. He was paid well. With this money, he provided his wife a townhome, a new Subaru Outback, and for himself a good number of toys. She was going to school for her BSN. In 2017 though, the relationship took a dark turn as many do, and he told me they got into an argument. During that argument, she admitted she had not really liked him as much as she said she did, and that she really only married him for his GI benefits. It was quite a contrasting thing to imagine, given that 6 months prior they had had a vow renewal that was beautiful, with her giving a compassionate speech. He divorced her within the month, sold the home, willingly divested of assets she requested per prenup, and moved in with his sister 2 states away. It was one of the worst days of my life helping him pack his empty house, because of all the memories I had there. I now rarely see him, and only interact with him on Discord when we game. He is not an expressive individual, but from what I can gather from my interactions and from the others on the Discord server, my friend is a changed man from the experience. He is much more reserved, and I honestly think he is afraid of dating another woman and being burned again. It makes me sad. I want to see him meet another woman and be happy with her, rather than go through a doldrum of life. Getting him to admit his fears and anxieties would make him angry, maybe even offended, and lead to a falling out. I could even be reading him completely wrong. But in any case, I wish things were better for him. The girl still lives around, and I do not interact with her, though she has approached me at the hockey rink my brother plays at to initiate a platonic conversation. Girl don't know I'm a gay chubby chaser though, but every time I excuse myself and leave. The story has made me very angry with her, because she led my best friend on false pretenses for her own benefit. One particular day, I was sitting at a table in a cafe near our lab that we always go to. She came in requesting to sit in the seat I was already sitting in. Strike one. I conceded because it was a stupid seat and I like to choose my battles. She said she wanted to chat, but within a few minutes she has her head glued to her phone and completely ignored me. She was more than happy to talk about herself, but when I piped up she instantly stopped listening. Strike 2. I got up and left, and she didn't even notice. Strike 3. Lost contact with her a few years ago after a handful of one-sided attempts to keep in touch, but she never made any effort. Someone who I considered one of my best friends refused to cut off with my ex, who spent the better part of 5 years beating the shit out of me almost daily and raping me about every other day because he was her friend too. He'd never done anything wrong to her, and there are 2 sides to every story, apparently. Even worse, bearing in mind that his side to the story was that, since I have OCD, I'm nuts, and basically imagined the whole thing. I had this same problem with a longtime friend. My abusive ex hit me in private a couple times at a party. Someone heard me wail and came into the room. I immediately left with another supportive friend. He told everyone at the party that I hit him and it was self-defense and I was crazy. It was only 7 years later that he beat up his new girlfriend so bad that he broke her nose and jaw that she reached out and apologized for not believing me. Fooing unbelievable. Check out our other videos and subscribe and leave your suggestions and experiences in the comments below. Have a great day.